It started like any other Monday morning, the usual chaos in the downtown cafe, people rushing in with tired eyes and demanding lattes. Alana, a sharp-tongued assistant manager with a no-nonsense attitude, was already on edge. She had worked her way up from the bottom, and in a place like this, being tough wasn't an option, it was survival. So when a tall, well-dressed black man leaned a little too close while placing his order, smiling as if they were old friends, Alana didn't hesitate. She turned, eyes flashing, and slapped him, right across the face. Gasps filled the cafe. The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry. He just stared at her, calm. Almost amused. "Flirt with someone else," she snapped, storming off to the back, her cheeks burning with rage and embarrassment. She was tired of being hit on, tired of being underestimated, tired of men thinking her position made her a target for charm. What she didn't know, though, was that the man she had just slapped wasn't some random customer. He was Darius Cole, the new billionaire owner of the entire company, from the cafe she managed to the 100+ other locations across the country. And he hadn't come in for coffee. He'd come in to quietly observe, undercover, to see the mess he'd just acquired. He hadn't expected drama on day one. But something about Alana's fire caught his attention, not in a flirtatious way, but in a challenge kind of way. Later that afternoon, the email blast hit every manager's inbox: mandatory corporate meeting, today. HQ presence. Immediate attendance required. Alana groaned. Great. Another pointless HR parade. She had no idea she was the reason for it. The boardroom was silent when he walked in. Sharp suit. Quiet steps. Commanding energy. People whispered. Some recognized him from business news headlines. Others didn't dare look directly at him. Alana sat stiffly in the corner, still unaware of who he really was. But when his eyes scanned the room and stopped on her, she felt it, that strange electric feeling, like something big was about to happen. He cleared his throat. "I'm Darius Cole. I'm the new owner of Cole Brands, effective immediately." Heads turned. "And today, I want to talk about leadership and accountability." His gaze didn't leave Alana. She froze. That was him? The man from the cafe? The slap? Panic shot through her veins. She could feel the HR manager's eyes boring into the side of her head, like they already knew. Darius paused, then smiled, not a cold, corporate smile, but one with curiosity behind it. "Some of you are here because you've earned it. Others? We'll see." And just like that, the tone of the room changed. This wasn't going to be some regular company meeting. And for Alana, the fallout from her mistake hadn't even started. She was about to find out that the man she thought she'd embarrassed wasn't angry, he was intrigued. And fixing this broken company? He'd be starting with her. Whether she liked it or not. But what Darius didn't know was, Alana wasn't going down without a fight. Alana's mind raced as the meeting went on, but all she could think about was that moment, the slap. She had never imagined her day would take such a wild turn. She'd been fighting to keep her job, her pride, and her respect in a company that was struggling, but now it felt like everything was about to come crashing down. Darius Cole wasn't just any billionaire businessman, he was someone with the power to change everything. And somehow, she was right at the center of it. Before Darius bought the company, it had been floundering for months. Profits were slipping, morale was low, and whispers of layoffs floated through the halls like a storm cloud ready to break. Alana had seen it all firsthand, employees walking on eggshells, managers fighting burnout, and customers slowly drifting away. She knew this cafe inside and out. It was her second home, but lately, it felt more like a sinking ship. Darius had a reputation for turning businesses around. The media painted him as a ruthless billionaire, the kind who would cut anything and anyone to make a quick buck. But Alana's brief encounter with him at the cafe didn't fit that story. There was something different in his eyes, something patient, even kind. Yet, that didn't mean she trusted him. Not yet. As the meeting wrapped up, Darius stayed behind, asking questions no one expected. Not just about profits or staffing, but about the daily grind, how things really worked, what the real problems were. When it was her turn to speak, Alana felt the weight of every word. She told him about the long hours, the constant pressure, and the burnout that wasn't visible to anyone outside the cafe's walls. She spoke honestly, without the usual filters she wore for customers or supervisors. He listened. Really listened. That moment planted a seed of uneasy hope in Alana's mind, but she quickly pushed it down. She had a history of being disappointed by bosses who promised change and brought nothing but chaos. Besides, she still couldn't shake the fact that she had slapped the man who now held her fate in his hands. Would that mistake cost her everything? Meanwhile, Darius was already making moves behind the scenes. His first order of business was to shake up the leadership team, and Alana's name kept coming up. Not because she was perfect, but because she wasn't afraid to speak the truth. That was rare in a place where so many people kept their heads down just to keep their jobs. But Darius wasn't just looking for truth-tellers. He wanted fighters, people who could turn the sinking ship around. Alana's fiery attitude and refusal to back down had caught his eye. She reminded him of himself, years ago, when he had started from nothing. But how would she react when she found out who he really was? When the truth came out about the slap? That was a secret only a few in the company knew, and it was about to blow wide open. Back at the cafe, rumors began swirling. Staff whispered about the mysterious new owner and the strange tension between him and Alana. Some thought it was a personal grudge, others guessed it was a test of loyalty. Alana herself was caught between frustration and curiosity. She wanted to fight for her job and the people she cared about, but part of her wondered if this billionaire was really the answer or just another problem waiting to happen. As days passed, the company atmosphere shifted. Meetings became more intense, expectations higher. And through it all, Darius kept watching Alana, not as an enemy, but as a puzzle he was determined to solve. Something about her wasn't just challenging, it was inspiring. But neither of them could predict how this complicated, fiery relationship would change the future of the company, or their own lives. For now, the stakes were clear. One mistake had set off a chain of events no one saw coming. And Alana had no choice but to face it head-on, even if she didn't know what the next move would bring. The question was, would she survive the storm, or be swept away by it? Alana's days became a careful balancing act. On one side was her usual grind, managing the cafe, calming frustrated customers, juggling schedules that never seemed to fit. On the other was the new reality, Darius Cole's watchful presence. He wasn't just a distant figure anymore. His decisions rippled through every department, and his eyes seemed to be on her more often than she liked. Every time their paths crossed, a silent tension crackled in the air, like two forces pulling at each other, neither willing to give in. Meanwhile, whispers around the office grew louder. Some employees admired Alana's fiery spirit and thought she was the kind of person this company desperately needed. Others saw her as a troublemaker who didn't know her place. The divide created an unspoken rivalry, and suddenly, the workplace felt less like a team and more like a battlefield. It wasn't just about coffee or profits anymore. It was about power, respect, and survival. Then there was HR. The department that had always been a quiet background presence suddenly became a front line in the growing conflict. The HR manager, a woman named Claire, seemed torn. On one hand, she wanted to support Darius's efforts to turn things around. On the other, she didn't want to alienate loyal employees like Alana who had been holding things together. Claire kept calling Alana in for meetings, some about complaints, others about company policies, but Alana couldn't shake the feeling that Claire was also trying to figure out if Alana was part of the problem or the solution. At the same time, Darius was pushing for big changes, new training programs, stricter accountability, and a fresh look at how the company treated its workers. It wasn't popular with everyone. Managers who had been comfortable with the old ways pushed back quietly, spreading rumors and questioning his leadership. Alana overheard conversations about the billionaire who thinks he knows everything and the girl who can't keep her mouth shut. It made her wonder how much longer she could stand in the middle without breaking. But Darius wasn't interested in just shaking things up for the sake of it. He was determined to fix the deeper problems, the culture of fear and silence that had allowed the company to spiral. He believed that people like Alana, with their fierce loyalty and unwillingness to back down, could be the key. That was the paradox. The woman who had slapped him was also someone he needed. He kept thinking about that moment in the cafe, the shock in her eyes, the fire in her voice. It wasn't anger he saw, it was something else. Something worth investing in. Yet, beneath the surface, a quieter tension was growing. Alana's own life was complicated. Outside the cafe, she was dealing with family struggles, financial pressure, and a deep fear that this job was the only thing holding her steady. She didn't have the luxury to pick and choose battles. Each day was a reminder that one wrong move could cost her everything. But standing up to Darius, or anyone else, came with risks she wasn't sure she was ready to take. As the weeks passed, small moments began to build into something bigger. Private conversations that hinted at alliances. Glances exchanged in hallways filled with unspoken challenges. Alana started noticing subtle changes in Darius's approach, less about asserting control, more about testing her limits. She wasn't just an employee now, she was a player in a high-stakes game she barely understood. And just when she thought she had a handle on things, a new problem surfaced, a serious complaint from a coworker that put Alana in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. The timing couldn't have been worse. It threatened to unravel the fragile trust she was trying to build, and it gave her enemies the opening they needed. Suddenly, the future felt even more uncertain. In this company on the brink, where every decision mattered, and every relationship was complicated, Alana and Darius found themselves locked in a quiet battle of wills. Neither wanted to admit it, but both knew their fates were tied together in ways neither expected. The question was, how far were they each willing to go, and what would be the cost? The tension in the company was like a ticking time bomb, and Alana could feel the pressure tightening around her like a noose. Every morning felt heavier, every task more urgent, and every glance from Darius carried a weight she couldn't quite read. His presence wasn't just a reminder of the slap anymore, it was a silent challenge, a test she wasn't sure she was ready for but couldn't ignore. The whole office seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to break. Then came the complaint. It hit like a shockwave through the staff. Someone accused Alana of favoritism, a charge that, if true, could end her career before it really began. Whether the complaint was fair or fueled by jealousy, it didn't matter. The rumor mill was in full spin, and whispers turned into pointed conversations. Managers who had quietly doubted her suddenly found boldness in their criticism. The HR meetings grew more frequent and more intense, with Claire walking a fine line between support and investigation. Darius watched it all with a strange mixture of patience and intensity. He didn't want to jump to conclusions, but he also couldn't let the company fall apart. He called Alana into his office, a sleek, glass-walled room that felt miles away from the cafe where their story began. The air between them was thick with unspoken questions. He didn't start with anger or accusations. Instead, he asked about the complaint, her side of the story, and what she thought was really happening beneath the surface of the company. Alana spoke honestly, trying to hold back the fear that threatened to choke her. She talked about the divisions, the struggles to keep the team together, and the fine line she walked every day between being a leader and just surviving. Darius listened, but his eyes held a sharper edge. He needed to know if she was ready to stand for more than just herself, if she could be part of the change he was determined to make. As days turned into nights, the company felt more like a battlefield than a workplace. Employees took sides, and the old culture of silence broke apart under the weight of new expectations and old resentments. Alana found herself isolated at times, unsure who to trust. Even her closest friends at work seemed to be watching, waiting to see if she would fall or fight back. Darius, too, was under pressure. The board wanted results, and the media was already sniffing around for a story about the billionaire who bought a failing company and clashed with his staff on day one. Behind his calm exterior, he wrestled with doubts. Was he pushing too hard? Was Alana the right person to help him rebuild, or was their clash a sign that this was doomed from the start? Then, just when the tension felt unbearable, a company-wide emergency meeting was called. The entire staff was summoned to hear a major announcement. The rumors swirling around layoffs and restructuring were worse than ever. Alana sat near the front, heart pounding. She could feel every pair of eyes on her, every whisper like a needle prick. Darius took the stage with his usual composed presence, but the air was electric with anticipation. His words cut through the room, sharp and deliberate. He spoke about vision, about change, about the sacrifices that would be necessary to save the company. And then he said something unexpected, something that made Alana's blood run cold. He announced a shakeup that would affect not only leadership but every employee, and that decisions would be made soon. The tension exploded. People shouted, some in support, others in anger. The company's fragile balance shattered in an instant. Alana felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. The future was unclear. Her career, her relationships, everything she had worked for was on the line. And somewhere in the chaos, Darius's gaze met hers, challenging, waiting, daring her to prove herself. The stage was set for a showdown that no one could predict. What would happen next would change everything, if they survived the storm. Just when Alana thought the worst was behind her, the unexpected hit like a thunderclap. A week after the explosive company-wide meeting, an anonymous email landed in Darius's inbox, one that promised to change everything. It was a leak, claiming that some of the most trusted managers were secretly sabotaging the turnaround efforts. Worse, it hinted at a hidden agenda targeting Alana specifically, accusing her of being part of the problem rather than the solution. Darius didn't share the email right away, but the seed of doubt took root. He began watching the leadership team more closely, questioning loyalties and motivations. Alana noticed the subtle shift, the glances that lingered too long, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered the room. Suddenly, the challenge wasn't just about fixing the company, it was about navigating a minefield of betrayal and hidden enemies. For Alana, the accusation felt like a punch to the gut. She had been fighting to prove herself, to survive the chaos, and now she was being targeted from all sides. The HR department ramped up its investigations, and Claire's support wavered under the pressure of mounting evidence, whether real or manufactured. The workplace that had once been a tough but familiar battlefield now felt like a trap closing in. Adding to the turmoil, Darius called another private meeting with Alana. This time, his tone was colder, more guarded. He laid out what he had learned, the doubts creeping into his mind, and the possibility that Alana might not be the ally he thought she was. The silence between them was thick, heavy with unspoken fears and unanswered questions. Alana had to make a choice, prove her loyalty or risk losing everything she had fought for. But how do you defend yourself against shadows and whispers? And how do you fight when the person you need most to believe in you is starting to doubt? Meanwhile, the company's future hung by a thread. Sales continued to falter, employees grew restless, and rumors of a major buyout began to circulate, threatening to upend everything again. The pressure on Darius intensified, and his moves became more unpredictable, leaving everyone guessing his next step. Amid the growing chaos, an unexpected alliance formed. Alana found herself confiding in an unlikely coworker, someone who had always seemed distant but now offered a surprising glimpse of the bigger picture. Together, They uncovered clues that suggested the sabotage ran deeper than anyone realized, pointing to secrets that could shake the entire company to its core. The stakes had never been higher. Trust was a scarce commodity, and every decision could spark a chain reaction with devastating consequences. Alana and Darius were caught in a high-stakes game where alliances shifted like quicksand, and the truth was buried beneath layers of deception. As the tension reached a breaking point, the question wasn't just who would survive the company's upheaval, it was who would be left standing when the dust settled. The clock was ticking, and the next move would change everything. The day of reckoning finally arrived with a storm brewing inside the office, thicker than any coffee they served. The air was heavy with tension, every glance and whispered conversation carrying the weight of what was about to unfold. Darius called an emergency meeting, bringing together the entire leadership team, HR, and key employees. Alana sat near the front, heart pounding, knowing this moment could make or break her future. Darius began by addressing the rumors, the sabotage, and the complaints that had fractured the company. Then, with a steady voice, he revealed what the investigation had uncovered. Several managers had indeed been working against the company's best interests, undermining efforts to save it. Their goal had been to discredit Alana, to make her the scapegoat for the failures that had plagued the business long before Darius's arrival. The room fell silent as the accused were confronted. Some admitted to their roles, their faces a mix of shame and defiance, while others stayed silent, their eyes avoiding everyone's gaze. Darius then turned to Alana, acknowledging her resilience and honesty throughout the turmoil. He admitted that their rocky start had clouded his judgment but that he now saw her as a crucial part of the company's future. Relief flooded through Alana, but it was quickly tempered by the realization that the battle was far from over. The company needed healing, trust needed rebuilding, and the scars of betrayal would not fade overnight. Yet in that moment, she felt a spark of hope that this fiery mistake had turned into something stronger than either of them expected. But just as the meeting seemed to close on a note of cautious optimism, Darius dropped a final bombshell. The anonymous email wasn't sent by a disgruntled employee or jealous manager, it had come from someone much closer to him, someone in his own inner circle trying to sabotage the turnaround from the inside. The real enemy was not just within the company, but within Darius's trusted team. The room erupted again in shock and confusion. Questions raced through everyone's minds. Who could it be? Why would they do this? And what did it mean for the future of the company, and for Darius and Alana's fragile alliance? In that charged moment, with all eyes on them, Alana and Darius exchanged a look. The slap that started it all was still fresh between them, but so was the unspoken understanding. They were in this fight together, and whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The story wasn't over. The real challenge was just beginning. And the next move would change everything once again. In the days that followed the shocking revelation, the company felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the next move that would decide its fate. Darius and Alana worked closely, determined to rebuild not just the business but the trust that had been shattered. The team behind the sabotage was carefully exposed, and swift action was taken to remove those who had put their own agendas above the company's success. It wasn't easy, and the process stirred up old wounds, but it was necessary. Alana found herself stepping into a new role, not just as a manager but as a bridge between employees and leadership. Her fiery spirit, once seen as a problem, became a symbol of resilience and honesty. She held meetings where people could voice concerns openly, and she encouraged collaboration over competition. Slowly, the culture began to shift. People started to believe in the company again, and more importantly, in each other. Darius learned too. The experience humbled him and showed that leadership wasn't just about big decisions and bold moves, it was about listening, understanding, and sometimes admitting when you were wrong. He and Alana built a partnership based on respect and a shared vision for the future. The slap that once defined their relationship became a distant memory replaced by mutual trust. Outside the walls of the office, Alana's personal life started to find balance as well. The stability at work gave her the strength to face family challenges she had been avoiding. She realized that the fight she had been fighting was about more than just a job. It was about standing up for herself and proving that she deserved respect and opportunity, no matter where she came from. The company's turnaround gained momentum. Sales improved, new clients came in, and employees felt a renewed sense of purpose. The media's early skepticism turned into curiosity and then admiration as stories about the unlikely alliance between the billionaire boss and the outspoken manager spread. Their story became a symbol of how conflict, when handled with honesty and courage, could lead to unexpected success. Yet, even with the victories, Alana and Darius knew the road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. Challenges would come, new conflicts would arise, but they were ready. Together, they had transformed a fiery mistake into a powerful force for change. Looking back, the slap that started it all wasn't just a moment of anger, it was a turning point. It forced both of them to confront their assumptions, their biases, and their fears. It pushed them to see beyond the surface and find strength in unexpected places. And in the end, it proved that sometimes, the hardest conflicts can lead to the greatest breakthroughs. As the company moved forward, so did Alana and Darius, two very different people brought together by chance, conflict, and a shared determination to build something better. Their story was a reminder that change often begins in the most unlikely ways, and that respect, trust, and understanding can transform even the toughest challenges into opportunities. The office was no longer just a workplace. It had become a place of growth, hope, and new beginnings. And for Alana, that was more than enough to keep fighting, for herself, for her team, and for the future they were creating together.